Hi there, I'm Tessa with Drink Wholesome, and I have the pleasure of chatting with Donna Monthei today all about IBS. Donna, would love to hear from you. What's your background and why are you interested in IBS?
Hi, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity here. I am a gut health dietitian. I work with patients with all sorts of gut symptoms, whether that's a result from an illness or parasites or something like food poisoning, GLP-1 meds or antibiotics. Typically, people that come to me have gone through the Western medicine system without getting relief from their gut symptoms. Most of them have an IBS diagnosis. I like to say I help people poop like a champion. I got interested in IBS several years ago now actually, when my dentist prescribed antibiotics for me. So I was taking 2 antibiotics at the same time that I later learned shouldn't be taken together. And you can probably guess what happened, right? My whole gut got wiped out. All the good guys were gone. Those good bacteria serve as a protective mechanism for us. And so when they're wiped out, bad guys can overgrow. So that's what happened to me. I ended up with IBS and all the symptoms. So I know intimately what it feels like to try to go out in public or work your job, just the underlying anxiety and uncertainty about what's my gut gonna do that day. And then to add to that, I was newly divorced and dating and just like trying to manage IBS with that.
Yeah.
Good times there.
Yeah.
I feel like I connect with people because I truly do understand. I've been there myself, and it's sort of a unique perspective for people to really understand that I get it. I know what they're experiencing when they say, I can't go to work, or I had to change my job, or I and withdrawing from travel or social situations or whatever it is. It's like, I get it. Totally.
Yeah. I mean, I always value that in my own practitioners, people that have those shared experiences. But when you had this bout with the antibiotics, were you already in dietetics?
I was already in dietetics, yes. I've been a dietitian for, I'll date myself here, over 20 years.
Yes. Okay.
And so, so then my focus became, okay, how do I help myself? And then, I sort of developed this through some trial and error there, developed a protocol. And so that's what I use with my patients now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And well, I'm sure most people listening to this are familiar with IBS. Could you give us just a high-level overview? What is IBS?
Sure. Yeah, so IBS, it's Irritable Bowel Syndrome is what the IBS stands for. Chronic disorder of the GI tract. It results in a host of symptoms. People typically think of the bathroom symptoms or the gut symptoms. Abdominal pain, bloating, which is what you see. Distension, which is what you feel. Gas, fatigue. It can be mood symptoms. It can be bathroom, constipation, diarrhea. Some people have both. The symptoms vary greatly among people, and there's not really a test to diagnose for IBS. Basically, what they do is rule out other things with blood tests, with imaging tests like colonoscopies. Some docs will rule out celiac disease or Crohn's, but there's not a test that they can do that's like, okay, boom, yes, you do have IBS D or C or M. And there's actually another one. I don't know if they're calling it IBSU, but it's uncategorized. And so I guess some people that don't fit into any of those other categories, but you can't test for it. And so once all those things are ruled out, somebody might get this diagnosis of IBS, a certain type, IBS C or D. And then, they're just like, okay, well, you have this, so good luck to you. So that's basically what IBS is, just a chronic disorder of the GI tract that results in a host of symptoms.
Gotcha. It sounds like it could be a pretty long process to getting that diagnosis as well.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of people really do struggle with that. I don't think it's necessarily any fault of one doctor, a healthcare practitioner, or another. I think it's just that the symptoms vary so much between people. And then again, without there being a specific test that is, yes, you do have this, that it's like, okay, well, we're trying all these other things. We'll do a celiac test. Well, you can have all sorts of symptoms from gluten and you don't have celiac disease. There's something called non-celiac gluten sensitivity, that people have really significant symptoms. It's not celiac disease. It's not that allergy or that autoimmune disease, but rather a sensitivity to the protein or to a component of wheat, gluten, barley, rye, those types of things. And so it's just like, well, I don't have celiac disease, but I'm still dying every time I eat a piece of bread. And so there's a lot to it. So yes, you are correct. People often go a long time without getting a diagnosis or with a wrong diagnosis.
It can be frustrating, I certainly imagine. And then so you're talking about gluten, people having reactions to certain foods. And one of the questions we got prior to this conversation from a customer was asking, when I eat foods and then experience a flare-up or have trouble digesting that food, my inclination is to eliminate that from my diet. So how do you counsel your patients on elimination diets and how to do that safely and in a way that is sustainable for a long term if you advocate for elimination at all?
So that's a really good question. The thing with IBS is typically what happens is somebody will go to their doc with, here's my symptoms, I can't get rid of these, whatever. They rule all the things out, they give them an IBS diagnosis, and there's not really like, this medicine or there's this tried and true resolution to your IBS diagnosis. And so people do end up doing elimination diets. Sometimes it's on their own. Well, they're like, okay, I know I can't eat avocados, or I know I can't eat this or that or the other, and they cut that. A lot of times people will get a recommendation from their doc for a low FODMAP diet. That's typically the elimination diet that's recommended for IBS patients. The problem with that is it's super restrictive, it doesn't work for everybody. About 50% of the people find relief. I'll use avocados as an example. So avocados are high FODMAP. And FODMAP is this category of fermentable carbohydrates that people with IBS typically cannot digest well. So lots of fruits and vegetables are in that group. And back to avocados. So some people will be able to eat like an eighth of an avocado. Some people will be able to eat a lot more than that. And some people will be able to eat none. So you go with this, low FODMAP diet, and they're like, okay, well, it says, I can eat an eighth of an avocado. And so they try that and they're in pain. And well, okay, this doesn't work then. And so it's really frustrating for people to try and figure out what foods are going to work for them, because it really is just an individual thing. There is a recent study, I think it came out in 2021, and they did a couple of groups. So the study looked at IgG food intolerance testing. So that was one group. They looked at patients that were taking or using the low FODMAP diet, and then they had a control group. And so IgG food intolerance testing is basically a blood test looking at your body's immune response to 50 different foods. And so the group that did an elimination diet based on the foods that showed up on their IgG food test as being inflammatory, once those were eliminated, that's what that group did. And that group had a way more significant decrease in symptoms than the low FODMAP group, or of course than the control group. And it was astounding, like 95% of people with bloating dropped down to 9% of people in that IgG food group. So they really made just massive changes on their symptoms, in the process. So people will say, okay, an elimination diet is that these are foods that I have to not eat forever, right? I say no. That's not what we want. I always say I want people to be able to eat the foods that they want to eat, not for their gut to dictate what foods they are capable of eating without symptoms. And so the way that I like to do elimination diets is, okay, we know these foods are problems for you. We cut them now while we are fixing the root cause problem. And then we add them back in one at a time, paying attention to symptoms. Is this causing a problem or not? And even if that initial reintroduction of that that food if it doesn't work. Okay, we just put that one in the not right now category, and we'll try it in a month or in 2 months or whatever period of time.
Yeah.
Based on, kind of how they're recovering and where they started out.
That seems like a really powerful element of working with a dietitian, because you're helping interpret symptoms and just giving a really clear framework for how to go about an elimination diet. And I think it's awesome that you do want to help people reintroduce those foods, eventually getting to the point where they can eat what they want to eat.
Yeah.
Because
Nobody wants to eat chicken and broccoli forever.
No. Does not have longevity.
No.
And then that study is incredible, what people are able to find in their blood tests. Do you ever do anything like that? Any sort of testings in your own practice?
Yes, I use that testing, and I also use a gut microbiome test called the GI map. It's basically a list of the organisms in your gut and how many you have in there, and then a reference number. And that's what I use to figure out, like, why are you having these symptoms in the first place? In a perfectly healthy gut, you don't have IBS. And so what's off? There's always something. And whether it's too many of some organism, it's not enough of the good organisms, or whether it is something like digestion. So we're looking at all of those things, the functionality of the pancreas and the liver, the gallbladder. Inflammation markers are in there, gluten sensitivity is in there, and then, the leaky gut thing. And so we're looking at kind of a comprehensive look there. And so I love to use those two things together to determine, okay, what foods do we need to steer clear of right now while we are fixing whatever the underlying issue is, an organism problem, or not enough good guys, or a digestion. And usually it's a combination of things, right?
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. I am a computer nerd from the onset. That was my first degree and my first sort of adult job. And I really like the data. I like to dig deep and do a nice deep dive on the analysis. I need the data to do that. I want those numbers. I want to see really exactly what's in there. Because take bloating, right? If somebody comes and they say, okay, I have bloating, I've been bloated forever, every food makes me bloated. Well, that can be, we have a problem with H. pylori. That can be from candida. That can be not enough beneficial species. That can be poor digestion. It can be all sorts of things. And there's not one fix. The resolution to each of those things is a different supplement or a different protocol. And so you have to know. You have to know why it's happening to be able to really address it. And this is why people a lot of times will spend thousands and thousands of dollars and months and years trying to resolve either a specific symptom or, kind of IBS in general, because their reason for having bloating isn't the same reason as the person on their Facebook group. Or people are trying to get information anywhere they can. And I get it. I mean, it's really frustrating to have a diagnosis and the symptoms related to IBS. It's just goes on, and it's like, I can't live my life. And so trying to get information where they can,
yeah, especially if there's a financial hurdle or something like that.
Sure.
So my next question, in light of you're talking a lot about individuality, so I'm wondering, however, if you were to be working with someone that was experiencing a flare-up, a lot of bloating, maybe diarrhea, that sort of thing, what are a few snacks or meals that you might recommend to that individual? Is it possible to make a broader generalization around nutrition, or does it have to be super specific to the person?
So kind of both.
Okay.
People do generally know which foods are problematic for them, even if it's just a suspicion. But I like to recommend to people, okay, we know you can do oats, or we know you can do a protein shake, or we know you can do this. Most of us, even people that don't deal with gut issues, put the same meals on repeat. We just do. We're creatures of habit. I'll do a bulk prep on Sunday, and so then I'll eat that for lunch for the next 3 days. So I'm having the same thing. So for the IBS patients, I like breakfast. An easy breakfast is oats with berries. I always want people to add protein powder in there and some sort of a fat, if they can do nut butter in there, something. I really like the protein powder. It's important to not have what they call naked carbs. That's a huge blood sugar spike, especially with oats. So I like something like that. A nice snack would be a protein shake. It's tough for people with IBS because most protein powders are full of garbage, and the dairy-based proteins don't work well for people with IBS. And so they're like, well, I can't do a protein shake because I can't do whey, or I can't do lactose, and all of that. But the Drink Wholesome powders, I absolutely love. They're pretty much my go-to recommendation for anybody that has its sensitivity. Any sort of IBS, SIBO, food intolerances, any of that is just like, okay, do something gentle, because the list of ingredients, and I mean, you see it on the front of the package, it's egg whites, vanilla, whatever, monk fruit, and nothing else. And so it's just very easily digestible, super gentle for that patient population especially. Now, it works for everybody, but for those people, it's a little tough for them. There's a lot of information now about increasing protein. Don't eat, a million carbs with no protein, no fat. But it's hard for people with food intolerances or restrictions where they feel like, okay, I can't do this. And so I love that. That's a nice, quick, easy way to get a snack. You can toss some greens in there. People tolerate them. A little bit of avocado, nut butter, some fruit, boom, you're done.
Keeping it pretty simple.
Yeah.
And then listening to your body. It also sounds like if you're talking about
absolutely, yeah,
people having a strong sense of what causes a flare-up. We've been talking a lot about nutrition. What are some other interventions that people with IBS can make in their life, or just behaviors that they can adopt that can help with symptoms?
Okay, so this is for everybody. People with IBS are more sensitive, so you might say it matters more for them. But hydration, there's a lot of information about that right now. It's kind of a hot topic. You just have to have water, especially if you're an IBS-C patient or M.
Mine right here.
There you go. Yeah. You've just got to drink, especially a lot of us are coming up on warmer months now, and we really need to replace that water, especially for sufficient elimination, nice formed stool. So that's one, hydration, and sleep. We tend to, especially in our younger years, just be like, well, I can do without sleep. But it's really important for people with IBS, because I think studies were showing that like half of IBS patients also had sleep difficulties. It's harder to get quality sleep with IBS, and poor sleep may make your symptoms worse. So it's this cycle of
Catch-22.
Yeah, exactly. Not getting enough sleep can increase inflammation. That's a bad thing for people with IBS. And so establishing, some routines around bedtime. We've all heard about this. Go to bed and wake up at the same time, reduce the blue light, get sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning, kind of reset your clock. Watch the caffeine. And then the other thing that's a big lever for me is movement. For IBS patients, probably shouldn't be CrossFitting 7 times a week, but gentle, sweet movement, be kind to your body. Yoga is really great. There's a lot of poses that are good for digestion, meditation, walk, a nice gentle walk. If somebody has IBS and they know that they can lift heavy or go for a long run or whatever, and that doesn't exacerbate symptoms, great. I'd say don't stop doing that because you have this IBS diagnosis. You just need to be really kind to yourself and understand, okay, every time I do X, whatever hard workout, I have worse symptoms the next day or that day. Okay, then don't do that. Let your body recover. It is in a state of inflammation. It is in a state of trying to manage whatever it is that's going on, whether it's only food or whether it's food plus, some imbalance in your gut. It's trying to manage. A lot of people end up with inflammation related to that or leaky gut, and there's a lot going on, and there's no reason for the crazy hard workouts every day.
Yep. Okay, so maybe occasionally, but you're also it sounds like trying to help people tune into what their body is telling you.
Yes. Yeah. And again, so if you have IBS and you can still do that kind of workout and it makes you less stressed and able to manage your day better, fine. But most people are not in that category, unfortunately. And so they do feel some consequences of doing those types of workout. And so just got to calm it down a little bit. It's hard for the type A's of us to be able to do that, but it is important for you to kind of take it a little bit more slowly than you otherwise would.
Yes, I totally get that. Because it's relatively common, I'm sure internet personalities have various hot takes, but what's something that your patients come to you saying and you have to help them reframe or re-understand?
I love this question because the myth that I think, in fact, most people come to me with is that IBS is forever. They get this from everywhere. You know, it's a chronic disease, it's a condition. And so people go to their doctor, they get this diagnosis, and they try the low FODMAP diet or something else, right? They eliminate foods that are problematic for them. But they have this label. And so now it's like, okay, you have IBS, you are IBS, and it's a lifelong condition, there's no cure, good luck, right? Well, who wants to hear that? You have a disease, there's no cure, so you're going to have all of these symptoms. You're going to have diarrhea forever. Have a good life.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it would also be hard to motivate to try and make any change if it feels a foregone conclusion.
Exactly, right. And so then people start spiraling. I'm never going to have pizza again, or I'm never going to have enchiladas, or whatever their favorite food is. That's horrible. So that to me is a myth. I've had many patients with IBS that completely 100% resolve their symptoms, period. Is that a cure? I don't know if it's a cure. I just don't feel like IBS is necessarily a lifelong condition. I think it happens for a reason. And if we can get to that reason, and this is again why I use testing, we see the reason. Once we rebalance, whatever's out of line, we can not only resolve symptoms, but we can get rid of that feeling of hopelessness for these people, because it's frustrating. I just don't feel like it has to be that way. And that's a big myth. I don't know why it is. The study that I just referred to from 2021 with the IgG food intolerance testing, it's not out there really yet. That's 4 years ago, or 3.5-ish years ago, and that's not standard of care. And so
maybe it'll take a new generation.
I don't know how long it will take, but if people don't know that that's an option, then they're going through the same, here's your diagnosis, here's your low FODMAP diet, have a good life and manage your symptoms as best as you can. Yeah, I don't like that at all.
Nor do I. So it sounds like you've talked about testing, you have patients that you work with one-on-one. How about for someone that maybe doesn't have the time or financial wherewithal right now to do those two things, but they want to learn more about their symptoms and how to manage that? Are there any good media resources like podcasts, books, or videos that you would recommend to someone who wants to understand what's going on in their body better?
Yeah, I think probably the best resource that I have seen is the Monash University website. They're kind of the OGs on IBS. They have tons and tons of information out there, as well as recipes, how to manage things a little bit. I would go with something like that versus, an influencer, because there's just a lot of misinformation out there. Again, I mentioned a Facebook group earlier. That can be really helpful for people to feel like they're not alone in their suffering, that they have a community, or that, whatever someone else has tried might work for them. But the real information, the tried and true, is on Monash University. You can just Google them and they pop up. It's monashfodmap.com. There's some information on my website as well. I just posted a blog about the study that I was referring to for people that are interested. That's out there.
Yeah, and that's
gives all of those numbers that I was, that I gave you a little bit, but there's quite a lot out there, and it's really remarkable. So that's what I would recommend. Like, go to the people that know, not your influencer that's recommending the potato diet for your IBS.
Yep, absolutely. But definitely some reputable sources to sift through. And then in the course of your treatment with someone, are there any services or products that you continually come back to as being helpful? Or it can be a few examples, since everyone has their own journey.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to work with me, I mean, there's information on my website. I do use, like I mentioned, the IgG food testing as well as the GI map gut comprehensive gut test. As far as just general products, I guess, people ask me a lot about probiotics or about supplements. I think a great place to start just in general for somebody with an IBS diagnosis is vitamin D. Most of us don't have enough vitamin D. Especially since, we're constantly inundated with like, stay out of the sun, don't get sunburn. Yeah. Well, yes, but we also vitamin D is really important for IBS. Supplementation may improve symptoms. I like a brand called Thorne. They have vitamin D and K2 together in their drops. So I have it's a little bottle. I have one in my bathroom and one in my kitchen, and I'll just do it every day. And I'll just see them and I'll be like, okay, have I done that yet today? No. So that's a super easy thing. Soluble fiber, it's an IBS-D patient, can help slow digestion down a little bit. That's like your oats, your lentils, your sweet potatoes, that type of thing. Or insoluble fiber for those with constipation, that can help add bulk to the stool. Some people just don't tolerate fiber initially though until whatever the gut imbalances are taken care of or sort of managed. So vitamin D, fiber if possible. If you don't tolerate it, get it from food. Increase it very slowly so you don't have worsening symptoms. Bloating is a big one with IBS. Yes. I recommend this product called MegaGuard by Microbiome Labs.
Okay.
That's really helpful. It's got ginger in there, some DGL. People generally find relief from gas and bloating. Now, are these things going to solve the problem? No, they are not going to solve the problem, but they can help. If your IBS symptoms are exacerbated because your vitamin D is low, let's look at the vitamin D, right? Get your levels tested, and it's super, super easy and inexpensive to supplement.
What I'm getting is products can be helpful once you have identified what's really going on. So you don't want to treat the probiotic as a Band-Aid, a fix-all.
Yep.
But you can introduce that if that's one facet of your recovery.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You can spend thousands of dollars trying everything, right?
Yes. Yeah. But your wallet might hurt after that.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Well, I think we have obviously just scratched the surface of the world of IBS from nutrition and lifestyle perspective. But I do want to say thank you for your time today, and also just leave you a moment to dive further into the specific services that you offer and where someone could follow up with you if they have more questions or are interested in learning more.
Okay, sure. I have a website. It's evervitalnutrition.com. You can find information about the IgG food intolerance testing that I spoke about. You can find information about the GI map gut test. There's a lot of information there. Mm-hmm. We do offer a free gut assessment, and so people that are interested can just jump on our website, click, boom, schedule a call. There's tons of information on our website. There's some gut-friendly recipes, so check that out. Any of the supplements that I mentioned, I have a supplements tab on there that will take you to my online dispensary at Fullscript. Anybody that sets up an account there will automatically be set up with my discount. So if they want to somebody wants to poke around and see what all's out there. I like using a source like that versus Amazon because we're sure that we're getting what we think we're getting. There's a lot of fake supplements on Amazon. So that's a really nice resource for people if they're interested in that. Okay. But I'd say if people are wondering like, what do I do or what's appropriate for me, just schedule a free gut assessment. There's no obligation at all. Sometimes it's just nice to talk to somebody that understands what you're going through.
Absolutely. As you were saying, that's why those Facebook groups are so helpful for people. You're not alone in your IBS journey.
Exactly. Right.
There is help out there.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's the time we have for today. But thank you again, Donna, and I'll drop more of the information in the caption below.
Thanks so much.